It's a warm August afternoon in Seattle. Outside, the sun is shining. Inside my office, a founder is panicking. In the chair across from me, he runs his hand through his hair and blurts out, "I've got 4 weeks. 4 weeks before my patent deadline, and I don't have the money." He's built something promising. He knows investors are going to care about patents, but the numbers don't lie. It's going to cost around $25,000 to draft and file his patent application to preserve foreign rights. His startup isn't fully capitalized yet, and his prototype is only halfway finished. And he's terrified. If he pays for the patent applications, that's his savings gone. If he doesn't, he risks everything. After a long silence, he finally shakes his head. I can't. It's too risky. I'll let the deadline pass. He pushes forward with the company anyway, hoping the product will speak for itself. But without that little phrase, patent pending, doors start to close for him. Investors want to see patent protection, and competitors already have patent applications on the books. It's an uphill battle, and eventually he gives up. 1 year later, I read the headline. Another company building almost exactly the same technology just closed a $16 million investment round. They scale, they dominate, they go public. The founders walk away with millions. My client reads it too, and it guts him. That could have been him. So what went wrong? To answer that, we need to rewind. It's 2 years earlier, and he's just left a big Seattle tech company. He's a brilliant engineer, he knows the market, and he spotted an unmet need, a gap that can turn into a huge, profitable company. He books a meeting with me and says, "I want to start with a non-provisional patent application. That's what my old company always did." And he's right. That's how Fortune 100s do it. But I explained that startups are playing a very different game. Big companies file non-provisional applications right away because they have deep pockets and huge patent programs. But startups, they need flexibility. They need to stretch every dollar. That's why successful founders usually start with a provisional patent application. It's cheaper, it's faster, and it buys a year of patent pending status before it expires so they can refine the invention and get investment before committing to the expensive non-provisional. He nods, but then looks puzzled. "The provisional sounds good, but why wait?" he asks. "I'm ready. Let's file it now." I caution him, filing too early can actually backfire. Once that clock starts, you can't stop it. That year is going to fly by far faster than he expects. But he waves me off. "I'll have this thing built in a few months," he insists, so we file the provisional application. Fast forward 10 months and I call him. His year is almost up and the provisional is about to expire. "It's time," I tell him. "We need to start drafting this non-provisional application." He exhales hard. Development has been slower than he had ever imagined. Cost higher, the prototype's still clunky. "How much again?" he asks. $20,000 just to draft and file the non-provisional application, and another $5,000 if you want to file a PCT to preserve foreign rights. He stares at the floor. I need to raise capital first. I can't spend that myself." Another month goes by. He comes in just 3 weeks before the final deadline. And finally, he admits it. "I need to let it go. I just can't risk the money." And that's when the clock runs out. The provisional lapses, his window closes, patent rights are lost. So what could he have done differently? Now here's the painful truth. His mistake wasn't taking too long to build the product or going over budget. His mistake was filing too soon. Had he waited even a few months, he could have delayed and filed the provisional application later, bought himself more time, delayed the expensive non-provisional, and still claimed patent pending status at the critical moment. Timing is everything. For startups, it can mean the difference between walking away empty-handed and walking onto stage as your company rings the bell on IPO day. If you're an inventor or startup, learn from his story. Patents are not just about protection. They're about strategy. And the right strategy can mean survival. So what is the best strategy for choosing when to file your provisional patent application? The primary thing is waiting until you're ready to make public disclosures, public uses, or offers for sale where patent rights would otherwise start to be lost if you don't file a patent application first. The next thing is potentially choosing to file before approaching investors. Now, the rationale here is that even though patent rights don't start to be lost because approaching investors typically isn't going to be a public disclosure, public use, or offer for sale, it can really improve your pitch. You can can go in, you can say that you're patent pending, you can talk about the technology more openly, and so it sets you up a lot better. So those are the 4 triggers that I usually suggest, is waiting until public disclosures, public uses, or offers for sale, or before approaching investors. Now, I get it. It's totally counterintuitive because it's true. Priority is based on who files their patent application first. But for startups, the biggest threat is money. So there is way more risk in filing too early than filing too late for startups. One exception I would give is with AI and how fast it's moving. Sometimes it can be desirable to file a bit sooner, but it tends to be better to wait until the product is more developed. And this is definitely true with all products. It is better to wait until you have the details of how the invention is actually going to work, because that's where patentability tends to be. It's not in the broad idea. It's going to be in the actual execution. And this is a mistake that a lot of people make, is they file too early when they don't have the details, and what they file tends to not really be very patentable. It starts that 1-year clock, and then they have to develop everything and get investment before they have to file the non-provisional. So waiting to flesh out the invention tends to be way better. So for AI inventions, that may be a good time to actually file once you've really fleshed things out. But for other folks, take that time, flesh out the invention, and then be ready to be making public disclosures, public use, or offers for sale, or potentially before you approach investors. That's the best time to file your provisional application. So as a patent attorney who's been working with startups for over 20 years, here are some common things that I see. And one is that it always takes longer and costs more to develop things. Another is that founders tend to be really overly optimistic about how fast they can develop a product, how users will react to it, how easy it will be to attract customers, and how easy it's going to be to attract investors. So this is a natural thing, and this is fine. That you should take the time it takes to develop the product, to find customers, to find partners and investors. That's totally fine. But it's only problematic when there are hard deadlines, like when you file a provisional application and it automatically expires the end of the year. You can't extend that term, and then you have to file that non-provisional and potentially, say, a PCT application to preserve foreign rights. You have to spend all that money within a year. That's when those things become problematic. Another mistake I see startups make frequently is working with patent attorneys who only have experience with large tech companies. Now, it's kind of surprising, but yeah, that's the experience that most patent attorneys have. And they really don't have true experience with startups and don't know the life cycle of startups. And it's counterintuitive, but the way that you build a patent portfolio for a startup is completely different. And somebody who all they know is, well, we file non-provisionals by default. That's how we start the patent process. And that's how these big tech companies do it. They don't realize that there's a completely different strategy for startups. So for this client specifically, what were his issues? One was he just didn't really have a lot of experience with startups, and that's totally fine. People aren't expected to immediately know these things. But at the same time, it made it so he didn't realize how much longer it was going to take and possibly how much more it was going to cost to actually build the product, and the natural slow life cycle of startups and how it can be painfully slow sometimes. And so as a result, he should have been more open to advice from people who had experience with startups, because a lot of this stuff is completely counterintuitive. So especially if you're a startup and you want to grow to be a Fortune 100 tech company, you want to use the same game plan as them. But the reality is that when you're starting, you build your patent portfolio completely different. You need flexibility. You need to keep costs down. At the same time, make it so that as you become more capitalized, you can grow and scale the patent portfolio. And that's a very specialized practice for people who really know how startups work, know the life cycles of startups, and surprisingly, a lot of patent attorneys just don't have that experience. So while the story is fictionalized and the facts change to protect the identity of clients and potential clients and other folks that I've worked with, it really does represent some of the top things that I see in my practice all the time, and is really an amalgam of a lot of experience that I've had in the last 20 years working with startups. And there are three main things that should be a big takeaway from this. One is that the way startups build a patent portfolio is completely different than large tech companies. And starting with a provisional application, not standard with big tech companies, but almost standard for startups. It's the better way to start the patent process. It gives a lot more flexibility. It can be done more cost effectively. And also, waiting to file until you are ready to start making public disclosures, public uses, or offers for sale, or potentially before you're going to start approaching investors.